Passendalen, die zoals u weet precies 100 jaar geleden begon. Gisteren hebben we die slag nog herdacht met een groot spektakel op de Grote Markt in Ieper. Vandaag bevinden we ons op Tyne Cot Cemetery voor een meer ingetogen plechtigheid. En de gasten die komen er nu aan. U ziet prins Charles, Theresa May begroeten. Steven van de Put, federaal minister van Defensie, staat ook klaar om hem de hand te schudden. Minister-president Geert Bourgeois, de West-Vlaamse gouverneur, de KLW en Dirk Sion, de burgemeester van Zonnebeke. Tyne Cot Cemetery is de grootste Britse begraafplaats ter wereld. Hier begroet prins Charles zijn zoon en schoondochter, prins William en prinses Kate. Tyne Cot Cemetery, grootste Britse begraafplaats ter wereld. Staan 12.000 individuele graven. De meeste ervan, ruim 8.000, zijn van onbekende soldaten. Mensen die gewoon vermist zijn en wiens naam niet eens bekend is. Er is ook de Memorial to the Missing, een muur met nog eens ruim 35.000 namen van vermiste soldaten. Veel aandacht tijdens deze herdenking gaat naar de gesneuvelden op Tyne Cot. Wie waren ze? En hoe worden ze ook door hun nabestaanden ook 100 jaar later herdacht? Prins Charles houdt een toespraak. En ook de Duitse gesneuvelden die worden ook herdacht. Daarvoor is de minister van Buitenlandse Zaken, Sigmar Gabriel, aanwezig. Maar de plechtigheid gaat beginnen met de tekst van In Flanders Fields, het heel bekende gedicht geschreven door de Canadese legerarts John McCrae. En die kapitein die schreef dit gedicht naar aanleiding van de dood van zijn vriend die aan het front sneuvelde. En terwijl John McCrae uitkeek over het slagveld en de poppies die er groeiden, beschreef hij eigenlijk hoe het slagveld eruit zag en welke indruk dat op hem maakte. We horen ook de Belgische nationale hymne. Er komt een auto aangereden met de nummerplaat 1. Dat zal ongetwijfeld koning Filip en koningin Mathilde zijn, die ons land vertegenwoordigen op deze plechtigheid. We zien ook dat de koningin en ook prins William en prinses Kate een poppy dragen. Het heel bekende symbool van de Eerste Wereldoorlog. De poppy, de klaproos, die groeide in omwoelde grond. Kwetsbare bloem die jarenlang kan blijven liggen, de zaadjes ervan, om dan tot bloei te komen in omwoelde grond. En natuurlijk tijdens de Eerste Wereldoorlog was er ruime omwoelde grond voorhanden. In feite het hele slagveld, en zeker dat van Passendalen, was door artilleriebeschietingen helemaal ondersteboven gewoeld. Die poppy is overigens een Brits symbool, is een beetje een internationaal symbool geworden, maar toch van oorsprong Brits. Fransen hebben daarentegen hun eigen bloem, de korenbloem. En ook het madeliefje is een symbool geworden, dus daar zit toch wel een beetje verschil op. Maar ik denk dat de poppy het meest verspreid is. Tyne Cot Cemetery lag echt midden op het slagveld. Het is het gebied waar duizenden soldaten de dood vonden. En waar achteraf hun graven, hun oorlogsgraven, verzameld zijn. En net zoals de ongeveer 150 andere Britse begraafplaatsen in de Westhoek, is dit grondgebied dat ons land aan Groot-Brittannië heeft geschonken. In de voorbereiding van deze herdenkingen in de aanloop naar 2014 toe is deze begraafplaats, net als de andere Britse begraafplaatsen, maar ook de Belgische en de Duitse, helemaal terug op orde gebracht. Een aantal aanplantingen zijn vernieuwd. Een groot aantal van de grafstenen zijn ook vervangen door nieuwe. En waar nodig zijn ook de inscripties op die grafstenen opnieuw gegraveerd, steen voor steen. Zoals u ziet zijn er veel mensen opgedaagd om deze herdenking bij te wonen. Een groot aantal mensen zijn nabestaanden van gesneuvelde soldaten die op Tyne Cot of op andere Britse begraafplaatsen in de buurt begraven zijn. En die nu uitgenodigd zijn om deze plichtigheid bij te wonen. Het groot aantal mensen betekent ook dat we met een klein beetje vertraging gaan starten. Maar ik denk dat het gedicht in Flanders Fields nu wel snel gaat volgen. De grafstenen die we vooraan zien staan, de rechthoekige, zijn 2 van de 4 Duitse grafstenen die tussen de 12.000 Britsen staan. En we gaan daar in de loop van de plechtigheid ook nog op terugkomen.
Private Edward Michael Batten, 13th Platoon, D Company, 45th Battalion, Australian Imperial Force. A grazier from New South Wales. Killed in action on the 12th of October, 1917. Aged 40.
Second Lieutenant Frederick Falconer, Military Cross. 17th Service Battalion of the Royal Irish Rifles. Killed in action, flying over enemy lines near Ypres on the 21st of August, 1917. Age 22.
Private James Munro, 1 South African Infantry Regiment, killed in action on the 20th of September 1917. His commanding officer wrote home, "Your son was a general favorite, and we shall all miss his cheerful personality."
My great-great-grandfather, Rifleman Stanley Durrant, of the King's Royal Rifle Corps, killed in action on the 24th of August, 1917. His son, my great-grandfather, was only 3 years old.
My great-great-uncle, Private Walter Stevenson, 4th Battalion Grenadier Guards, a coal miner and an amateur footballer, killed in action July 29th, 1916, aged 20.
Private Daffyd Griffith of the 7th Battalion, the King's Shropshire Light Infantry, killed in action on the 26th of September 1917. His younger brother was killed 3 months later.
My great-great-uncle and namesake, Sergeant William Rhodes, Cheshire Regiment, awarded the Distinguished Conduct Medal, killed in action 31st of July 1917, 100 years ago today.
Prins Charles gaat nu plaatsnemen aan het Cross of Sacrifice, gebouwd op een voormalige Duitse bunker. En die plek heeft voor zijn familie toch wel een heel speciale betekenis. Dat zal hij zo dadelijk in zijn toespraak ongetwijfeld vermelden.
Years ago today, the Third Battle of Ypres began. At 10 to 4 in the morning, less than 5 miles from here, thousands of men drawn from across Britain, France, and the Commonwealth attacked German lines. The battle we know today as Passchendaele would last for over 100 days. We remember it not only for the rain that fell, the mud that weighed down the living and swallowed the dead, but also for the courage and bravery of the men who fought here. The advance was slow and every inch was hard fought. The land we stand upon was taken 2 months into the battle by the 3rd Australian Division. It would change hands twice again before the end of the war. In 1922, my great-grandfather, King George V, came here as part of a pilgrimage to honor all those who died in the First World War. Whilst visiting Tyne Cot, he stood before the pillbox that this cross of sacrifice has been built upon, a former strong German stronghold that had dominated the ridge. Once taken by the Allies, the pillbox became a forward aid post to treat the wounded. Those who could not be saved were buried by their brothers in arms in makeshift graves. These became the headstones that are before us today. After the end of the war, almost 12,000 graves of British and Commonwealth soldiers were brought here from surrounding battlefields. Today, a further 34,000 men who could not be identified or whose bodies were never found have their names inscribed on the memorial. Thinking of these men, my great-grandfather remarked, "I have many times asked myself whether there can be more potent advocates of peace upon earth through the years to come than this massed multitude of silent witnesses to the desolation of war." In 1920, the war reporter Philip Gibbs, who had himself witnessed Third Ypres, wrote that nothing that has been written is more than the pale image of the abomination of those battlefields, and that no pen or brush has yet achieved the picture of that Armageddon in which so many of our men perished. Drawn from many nations, we come together in their resting place, cared for with such dedication by the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, to commemorate their sacrifice and to promise that we will never forget.
Er volgt nu een gedicht, het gedicht Engledion, geschreven door de dichter William Sperry als nagedachtenis voor zijn vriend, de Welsh-dichter Ellis Evans, beter bekend als Edwin. En die man die stierf reeds op de eerste dag van de derde slag om Ypres.
Traus vanni trostei veini, travailiais arvoili verari, troidione
A tribute in song to the Welsh poet Haydd Wyn, who was buried at Artillery Wood Cemetery alongside the Irish poet Lance Corporal Francis Edward Ledwidge of the Royal Enniskillen Fusiliers. Ledwidge was an Irish nationalist who enlisted when war broke out in 1914. Both poets were killed in action 100 years ago today. A Soldier's Grave by Francis Ledwidge. Then, in the lull of midnight, gentle arms lifted him slowly down the slopes of death, lest he should hear again the mad alarms of battle, dying moans, and painful breath. And where the earth was soft for flowers, we made a grave for him that he might better rest. So spring shall come and leave it sweet arrayed, and there the lark shall turn her dewy nest.
Sergeant Walter Hubert Downing, 57th Battalion, Australian Imperial Force. Men fell silent or spoke casually or made surly jests according to their natures. No one spoke of the task before us. Occasionally we stirred to brush the dirt from our necks and to empty our pockets of dust. Dry, heavy clods of earth flew on the air. Shells roared and moaned incessantly across the floor of heaven. The sky was starry.
Private Charles Miles, 10th Battalion, Royal Fusiliers. The moment you set off, you felt that dreadful suction. It was forever pulling you down, and you could hear the sound of your feet coming out in a kind of sucking plop. Seemed much louder at night, when you were on your own. In a way, it was worse when the mud didn't suck you down. When it yielded under your feet, you knew that it was a body you were treading on. It was terrifying.
Private Leonard Hart, 2nd Battalion, Otago Regiment, New Zealand Expeditionary Force. Dear Mother, Father and Connie, in a postcard which I sent you about a fortnight ago, I mentioned that we were on the eve of a great event and that I had no time to write you a long letter. Well, that great event is over now, and by some strange act of fortune, I have once again come through without a scratch. The great event mentioned consisted of a desperate attack by our division against a ridge strongly fortified and strongly held by the Germans. For the first time in our brief history as an army, the New Zealanders failed in their objective, with the most appalling slaughter that I have ever seen. My company went into action 180 strong, and we came out 32 strong. Still, we have nothing to be ashamed of, as our commander afterwards told us that no troops in the world could possibly have taken this position. But this is small comfort when one remembers the hundreds of lives that have been lost and nothing gained. I remain, your affectionate son, Lynn.
Sister Jean Calder, casualty clearing station at Remy Siding. We'd had boys coming in all week, of course, and we'd been busy. But the ones we got at the weekend were in a shocking state, because so many of them had been lying out in the mud before they could be picked up by the first aid orderlies. Their clothes were simply filthy. They didn't look like clothes at all. We had to cut them off and do what we could. In a civilian hospital, even an army hospital, the man had a home quite near, and relations possibly. But the wounded man on the battlefield is miles away from his home and his family. He's in pain, and he's amongst strangers. And I think that was why sympathy went out from one to the other.
Private Bert Ferns, 26th Lancashire Fusiliers, describing an attack in October 1917 on the land we are gathered on today. Mr. K came up and said, "Come on, lads, it's our turn." And we just walked round the corner of the pillbox and up the hill. The Germans didn't have much to fear from me that morning. There was no fire in my belly. No nothing. I staggered up the hill and then dropped over a slope into a sort of gully. It was here that I froze and became very frightened. Because a big shell had just burst and blown a group of our lads to bits. There were bits of men all over the place, a terrible sight. Men just blown to nothing. I just stood there. It was still and misty, and I could taste their blood in the air. I couldn't move. I stood there staring. Then an officer came across and shouted. We were too far left and must go half right. I would have probably been dead but for him jolting me out of it. These men had just been killed, and we just had to wade through them to get on. That's one thing I'll know, what I saw and what I smelt.
Private Frank Hutchins, 11th Canadian Field Ambulance, Canadian Army Medical Corps. I was at a place called Tyne Cot. We had 2 pillboxes there. It was a group of pillboxes. The doctor and his helpers were in one, and we stretcher bearers were in another, about 100 feet away. We put the stretcher case in a depression in the ground. He was very frightened, the wounded boy. He said to me, "Am I going to die, mate?" I said, "Don't be stupid, fella. You're going to be all right. As soon as the Heine stops his shelling, we'll have you out of here, and they'll fix you up okay. You'll be back across the ocean before you know it." The shelling eased off, and we picked him up and set off again. He died before we got to the dressing station. On our way back, we of our number 1 squad. There was nothing but limbs in the place. Stretcher bearers that day. Hell was never like that.
My great-uncle, Rifleman Harold Emmons, the Rifle Brigade, the youngest of 11 from Manchester, missing in action on the 8th of September 1917.
Second Lieutenant Alexander Currigordy, on the 9th Service Battalion Scottish Rifles, he joined the Scottish Horse in 1914, before transferring to the Cameronians in March 1917. Missing in action on the 20th of September 1917.
Private Hugh Dalzell of the Royal Irish Fusiliers, identified by a photograph he was carrying of his mother, missing in action on the 16th of August 1917, aged 20.
Private Albert James Ford, C Company, 14th Service Battalion, the Royal Warwickshire Regiment, husband to Edith and father to 6. In a last letter to his wife, he wrote, "Know that my last thoughts were of you. In the dugout or on the fire step, my thoughts went out to you." Killed in action, 26th of October, 1917.
Private Ernest Gaze, 10th Corps Cyclist Battalion, Army Cyclist Corps, killed in action, aged 19. Dear friend, I am addressing you as friend, as any friend of my boys is my friend. I thank you for sending us word of how our dear Ernest died. It is dreadful, though, to lose our dear boy in this way. We would not believe it till we had the letter from someone who saw him. Did you see my boy after he died? Could you tell us how he was? I should like to know what time of the day or night it happened, or thereabouts. I am sure we are all the while thinking of you dear lads, hoping and praying for you to be kept safe. And then when these awful tidings are sent us, it shakes our faith. But then again, when we get calm, we know that God is still in his heaven, and he orders all things for the best. I sent Ernie a parcel off on the 21st of August. If you could see anything of it, will you share what is good between you and his friends? I shall never forget you, and hope you will write often to me. So thanking you, I close. Yours truly, Mrs. Gaze. P.S. Write soon.
Letter from an unknown German officer, September 1917. Dear Mother, on the morning of the 18th, the dugout containing 70 men was shot to pieces over our heads. I am the only one who withstood the maddening bombardment of 3 days and still survives. You cannot imagine the frightful mental torment I have undergone in those few hours. After crawling out to the bleeding remains of my comrades and the smoke and debris, and wandering and fleeing in the midst of the raging artillery fire in search of refuge, I am now awaiting death at any moment. You don't know what Flanders means. Flanders means endless endurance. Flanders means blood and scraps of human bodies. Flanders means heroic courage and faithfulness unto death. Your Otto.
De slag om Passendale kostte meer dan 450.000 soldaten, waren daarvan het slachtoffer, waaronder meer dan 175.000 gesneuvelden. Ongeveer gelijk verdeeld tussen de geallieerde strijdkrachten en de Duitse tegenstander. En daar willen we nu even bij stilstaan. 4 Duitse graven bevinden zich op Tyne Cot Cemetery. 3 onbekende. 3 van de 4 graven zijn van een onbekende soldaat. En kinderen bieden nu bloemen aan prinses Kate en koningin Mathilde. En ook aan Sigmar Gabriel, de Duitse minister van Buitenlandse Zaken.
Let us pray. Faithful God, compassionate and merciful, hear us as we remember those valiant hearts who fell in the heat of the conflict and died here in the mire and clay of the trenches. We honour the examples of selfless service, of comradeship and care that shine out of the loss and waste. We remember the proud and sorrowing lands from which they came, those who returned wounded in mind or body, all at home who mourned the dead, and all here who suffered the loss of home and community. Guide the nations united today in sorrow into the light of freedom, contentment, and glorious hope, and hear the longing of our hearts for peace. We ask this for the sake of your world and the good of all your children, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
And we'll now hear from the British Prime Minister, Theresa May. She is going to be reading from Ecclesiastes. And you can listen out for the phrase in that, their name liveth for evermore. That is carved on the stone of remembrance here at Tyne Cot.
All these were honoured in their generations and were the glory of their times. There be of them that have left a name behind them, that their praises might be reported. And some there be which have no memorial, who are perished as though they had never been, and are become as though they had never been born, and their children after them. But these were merciful men, whose righteousness hath not been forgotten. With their seed shall continually remain a good inheritance, and their children are within the covenant. Their seed standeth fast, and their children for their sakes. Their seed shall remain forever, and their glory shall not be blotted out. Their bodies are buried in peace, but their name liveth for evermore.
We krijgen nu een kort citaat uit het gedicht Voor de Fallen. Een citaat dat heel vaak bij dit soort plechtigheden wordt gebruikt.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
En na de traditionele last post houden we 2 minuten stilte uit respect voor de soldaten die hier en op andere begraafplaatsen begraven zijn of wiens graf niet eens bekend is.
Private Robert Stocko, Private Edward Wright, and Private Peter Holland of East Lancashire Regiment. Killed in action the 27th of November 1917. Aged 21, 19, and 23 respectively.
Private William Dominey, 21st Battalion, Canadian Infantry. He did his duty. Killed in action on the 3rd or 4th of November, 1917. Aged 18.
My great-great-grandfather, Albert James Goff, of the Devonshire Regiment. An agricultural labourer and father of 8. He was killed in action on the 26th of October 1917, aged 37.
Private Henry Morris, Auckland Regiment, New Zealand Expeditionary Force, a farmer from Matakawi. Killed in action on the 4th of October 1917. A tribute to him read, "In a hero's grave he sleepeth. How little we thought when we parted. This was the last farewell."
My great-uncle, Sergeant John Kerwin, of the Duke of Wellington's West Riding Regiment. Throughout my childhood, I was intrigued by his portrait, which hung in my grandparents' home in Durham. Killed in action the 10th of October, 1917, age 22.
A soldier of the Great War, known unto God.
We gaan nu over naar de notabelen en VVIP's die kransen gaan neerleggen aan de Stone of Remembrance. Die symbool staat voor de herdenking, voor de herinnering aan de gesneuvelden en de soldaten die in deze streek vochten. De eerste krans wordt neergelegd door koning Philip en prins Charles. Your name lived forevermore staat op de Stone of Remembrance, een citaat gekozen door de schrijver Rudyard Kipling, de auteur van Jungle Book, wiens zoon Jack ook sneuvelde tijdens de Eerste Wereldoorlog. Volgende kransen worden neergelegd door de Britse premier Theresa May en door de Belgische federaal minister voor Defensie Steven van de Put. Kransen worden ook neergelegd door minister-president Geert Bourgeois, samen met Sir Tim Lawrence, de vicevoorzitter van de Commonwealth War Graves Commission, die Tyne Cot en alle andere Britse begraafplaatsen, militaire begraafplaatsen ter wereld onderhoudt en daarvoor verantwoordelijk is. En tenslotte is het de beurt aan de West-Vlaamse gouverneur Karel de Kaluwe, samen met Dirk Sion, de burgemeester van Zonnebeke. Meer dan 50 nationaliteiten vochten in deze streek en een aantal ervan zijn ook vertegenwoordigd in de kransneerlegging door hun vertegenwoordigers. De meeste graven op deze begraafplaats zijn van Britten, maar we mogen toch niet vergeten dat ook Australiërs, Nieuw-Zeelanders, Ieren en Canadezen, Zuid-Afrikanen en soldaten uit Nieuw-Finland hier vochten. Dat hebben we trouwens gemerkt op de grafstenen die tijdens deze plechtigheid getoond werden. En ook in de citaten en de brieven, de namen die vermeld werden. Een aantal van die landen zetten zich met deze acties ook op de kaart. En voor hen was het ongetwijfeld ook een stap in hun streven naar zelfstandigheid. VIP's worden nu gevraagd zich klaar te zetten om een formatie van de Belgische luchtmacht te zien overvliegen. Het gaat om 4 F-16's uit de basis van Florens. En die vliegen over in de formatie als een ode to the missing man, waarbij een van de vliegtuigen de formatie zal verlaten als een symbool voor de soldaten, de militairen, die in een oorlog ons verlaten. Daarmee zijn we aan het einde van deze plechtigheid. We krijgen nog een schitterend zicht op een mooi landschap dat ooit totaal verwoest was. Op nauwelijks een dozijn kilometer van Ypres. Meer dan 100 dagen strijd, 175.000 doden voor een winst van nauwelijks 8 kilometer. Koning Philip en koningin Mathilde en prins Charles bezoeken deze namiddag nog de Zonnebeke Church, een schuilplaats van Britse soldaten in Zonnebeke. En ook de Memorial Poppy Garden in Passendalen. Later op de dag zal prins Charles ook nog een plechtigheid bijwonen aan het Welsh National Memorial Park in Langemark. Daar woont hij een nationale herdenkingsdienst van Wales bij. En zal hij ook nog het Artillery Wood Cemetery bezoeken, waar de dichters Edwin en Francis Ledwidge begraven zijn. In de nabije toekomst, volgen nog Canadese, Nieuw-Zeelandse en Australische herdenkingen. Die gaan we zeker ook opvolgen en daarover zal u ook nog berichten krijgen. Ik dank u alvast voor het kijken naar deze ingetogen, maar toch indrukwekkende Britse herdenkingsdienst op Tyne Cot Cemetery.